Figures revealed today show the alarming scale of child sex abuse church in Australia.
Welcome to the JW Untold Truth channel. This is part 3 of day 1. We're going to see the introduction of BCG Case in the Australian Royal Commission. So follow along and we'll see what happened on this day.
A person given the pseudonym BCG was baptized as a Jehovah's Witness when she was about 16 years old. The Royal Commission will hear evidence of BCG's experience growing up in a strict Jehovah's Witness family. BCG will give evidence that her father, BCH, was a highly regarded Jehovah's Witness who was appointed as a ministerial servant in the Mariba congregation in far north Queensland in about 1984. BCG's evidence will be that her father was influential within the congregation because he was well respected amongst members. As head of the household, BCH dictated and enforced compliance with household rules. BCG was not permitted to associate with anybody outside the Jehovah's Witness community and was taught from a young age that worldly people could not be trusted. BCG was not permitted by her parents to attend school after year 10 because choosing higher education over Jehovah was frowned upon by the Jehovah's Witness Church. When she was 17, BCG was sexually abused by her father on a number of occasions over a 2-week period whilst her mother and siblings were away. BCG tried to report her father's abuse to 2 elders within the Mariba congregation, both of whom were friends of her father. BCG will give evidence that both elders refused to speak with BCG without her father being present. It was not until BCG found the courage to tell a male friend who approached BCG's father and the elders that the matter was investigated by the elders. BCG was interviewed by 3 elders, all friends of her father, on a number of occasions. On each occasion, BCG was alone without any support, and on one occasion, her father was also present. BCG's evidence will be that instead of being protected and supported as a victim, the elders primarily sat in judgment of her credibility as a witness and made her feel to blame. BCG will give evidence that the elders forced her to directly confront her father with her abuse allegations. Her father's response was to threaten BCG and to blame her for seducing him. The Royal Commission will hear that when BCG disclosed the abuse to her mother advised that her father had previously abused BCG's older sister. At around the same time, BCG's 2 younger sisters confirmed that they were also victims of their father's abuse. The Royal Commission will hear that although the elders were advised of the additional victims, they did not take them into consideration in their investigation. BCG's father was ultimately disfellowshipped, not for his sexual abuse of BCG, but for unrelated, as it's put, loose conduct and lying. BCG will give evidence that the elders would not consider the evidence of her sister's abuse because they were not witnesses to the same event. BCG was devastated that her father's sexual abuse did not appear to qualify as wrongdoing in the eyes of the Jehovah's Witness Church. BCG's father immediately appealed his disfellowshipping. BCG was brought before an appeal committee alone to be interviewed again about the abuse. It was at this time that her father admitted the abuse and his disfellowshipping was upheld with grounds of porneia added. The Royal Commission will hear that BCG's father was reinstated after only a few years. BCG will testify that she was concerned for the safety of the congregation, but was discouraged from reporting to the police and was herself threatened with disfellowshipping. In December 1995, BCG wrote to Watchtower Australia regarding her father's premature reinstatement. Watchtower Australia responded in February 1996 by counselling faith in Jehovah and advising that it would make inquiries into the matters raised. The Royal Commission will hear that when BCG eventually left the Jehovah's Witness Church, she was completely ostracized by members of her local congregation. BCG then reported her father's abuse to the police. BCG's father, BCH, was ultimately convicted in 2004 for unlawful and indecent assault and attempted rape of BCG and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. The Royal Commission will hear evidence from the 3 elders of the Mariba congregation. That's Dino Ali, Ronald DeRoy, and Kevin Bowditch, regarding their role in handling BCG's allegations of abuse by her father that she reported in about May 1989. Dino Ali and Ronald DeRoy will give evidence that, in circumstances where BCH denied the allegations, the Judicial Committee was bound by the rule requiring 2 or more witnesses and did not have sufficient proof of the child's sexual abuse to take judicial action. It was for this reason, the Royal Commission will hear, that BCH was ultimately disfellowshipped, not for child sexual abuse, but for loose conduct and for lying to the elders about his conduct. Ronald DeRoy and Kevin Bowditch will give evidence that it was not until BCH confessed to the sexual abuse of BCG during the appeal committee hearing in 1989 that the grounds for BCH's disfellowshipping were extended to include his sexual abuse of BCG. In 1990, BCH applied to the Beanley East congregation for reinstatement. The Royal Commission will hear that Rodney Spinks and Monty Baker, both elders in the Beanley East congregation at that time, regarding their involvement on the Judicial Committee appointed to consider BCH's reinstatement application. Rodney Spinks will give evidence of give evidence that BCH's reinstatement application was rejected because he did not display genuine repentance. Mr. Baker will give evidence regarding the process of liaising with the Mariba congregation, which was responsible for the decision to disfellowship BCH to obtain relevant information to assess BCH's reinstatement application. Alan Penchef was an elder of the Logan Home congregation. He chaired the Judicial Committee that disfellowshipped BCH again in 2003 for lying. Mr. Penchef will give evidence that he was not aware of any reason to restrict BCH's contact with children at the time BCH joined the Logan Home congregation, and that he only became aware of BCH's abuse allegations when criminal proceedings were brought against him between about 2001 and 2004. The Mariba congregation recommended certain restrictions be placed on BCH due to the gravity of the wrongs committed, but did not recommend any restrictions regarding BCH's exposure to children. Mr. Toole will give evidence that in January 2003, he provided a memorandum to the service desk which observed that the primary issue before the Logan Home Judicial Committee in 2003 was BCH's lying as opposed to his sexual abuse of BCG. In about 2001, criminal proceedings commenced against BCH for child sexual abuse, and in 2004, he was convicted and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment.